Welcome to Morning Joe with Tom, with your host, Thomas Chappell. Get ready to listen to real-life stories from inspiring leaders who have overcome incredible challenges to rise to the occasion. If you're ready to add some pep to your morning with a new outlook on leadership, then grab your cup of coffee. It's time to be inspired. Here's your host, Thomas Chappell.
Hey, Brian. Thanks for joining us here on Morning Joe with Tom. I appreciate you showing up.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me, Tom.
Yep, absolutely. So, Brian, we met a little while back, and but for my listeners, I would love for them to kind of hear your journey and how you got to where you are today. So,
yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for this morning. Like I said, we met you a little while back through a mutual friend, but came in the Army as a young farmer at the age of 17. Did a military career and retired about 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. Since then, have become a serial entrepreneur, working in multiple avenues. Actually finished my military career as a government acquisition officer. Took that trade into the commercial industry, where since then I've actually had a real estate company, a medical company, defense contracting company, and then now I consult for several companies on just how to embrace the government machine and work with the owners or the C-suite or the senior managers or vice presidents to work on the strategy of their company, potentially help them with funding, or just kind of help them get their opportunities as part of SWAT organized and moving forward.
So would you mind taking a moment just to kind of drill into that just a little bit? Because that sounds like that you serve multiple customers there.
I do. So I do when I left the Fortune 100 company I was working for, I ran a global ISR division and left and started the consulting company. And now I actually consult for maybe a half a dozen, eight companies from startup, and I still have two Fortune 100 customers. And we work with them, as I said, across their strategy, across their business development. I kind of like to say I help them figure out the organization and then really sharpen the tools for kind of the way forward. I don't really get into the proposals, but I do help them kind of focus on what they're pursuing.
Okay. So what brought you to serve others the way that you do?
Well, Tom, before I retired from the military, one of the things I realized is I would send a requirement up to headquarters, and I'd ask for a certain type of person or certain type of people. And at that point in time, it was really, I would get more than, I'd get a warm body sometimes. I hate to say it, but you would. And so therefore, you ended up having to do a lot of training to help the organization or to help the individuals be ready for the tasks that you had for them. And so that got my interest peaked on why we had the military and first responder market recruits from the do not haves of the U.S. marketplace. You don't expect them to be high tech, real geeky, really technology savvy. Mm-hmm. But yet, all four services, they run them through 8-week basic training or 10-week basic training and a 6-week specialty training. And, all of a sudden in 12 weeks, we got the world's most technologically advanced force on the globe. So I started asking myself, okay, how does this happen? So it intrigued me so much, Tom. Even though I had retired and started, I was running two businesses. I started a PhD to study the digital divide in the Department of Defense, and actually took that to we changed the name as part of the process into the digital divide and technology acceptance. And what we found, this was right about the time the iPhone was coming out. And as I was trying to solve hard problems for the military and some first responders, mm-hmm. I was just trying to look at this adaptation. And so I ran all kind of models against the digital divide factors, and finally sit down on my chair one day, and she and I were talking about it. And she just said, "Have we looked at self-efficacy as part of this problem?" And of course, I said, "No, I have not." I was really looking at all the factors that 30 years of digital divide research, was based on it, and what really was causing that problem. And therefore, we put self-efficacy into it, and it turns out that Steve Jobs has it right. If you tell somebody to go do something and they want to do it, or they believe they have to do it, they'll go do it. So self-efficacy plays a critical role in adapting to technology acceptance and the technology the way it is now. So as I work with companies now, it is truly about the relationship management, building your team, working with your team to get the right person in the right seat, and then making sure we have the right type of training, or at least have laid out the task for them where they can use self-efficacy, their perseverance, and just their will to want to be successful, to be part of the team, to make the company successful.
Wow. That's deep, man. That's real deep. I heard you make a comment about, getting butts in the right seat. And I 100% agree with you there. It's been my experience that that the right seat is important, but at the right time is
absolutely
extremely important.
Well, one of the things I do, Tom, when I walk into a company is, first thing I ask the owner or the CEO or one of the vice presidents, okay, let me see your opportunity sheet or your pipeline. And a lot of companies, they're so sales driven that there's a massive amount of fluff in the pipeline,
really,
in the opportunity. So I ask them, okay, they'll say, okay, we're pursuing 60 opportunities. And I'll say, well, how many business development or salespeople do you have? 3. So in your market, can 3 people service 20 clients or 20 customers efficiently?
Ooh.
So again, I go in and I drill down to ask the questions, and then I say, let me look at your last SWOT. And then a lot of them look at me and they have to blow the dust off their strategy plan or their business development or their business plan, because they've done the SWOT, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. They all high five each other. They put the book on the shelf. They grab the O out of it, which is the opportunity. They build up a pipeline and they forget the other 3.
Yep. Yeah, that's been my experience too.
So it's you see that, and you got to go back, because if you look at project management, we don't call it a SWOT, we call it the stakeholders, the internal stakeholders and the external stakeholders. And a SWOT, that's the threat, out there, or the weaknesses out there. It's the, it's your silent partner, Uncle Sam, making new rules for you. Or it's different regulation at the local level that if you're not paying attention to, it could change your whole business model.
Yeah.
And we get so caught up in sell that we forget about the relationship that the individuals have to have with not only the people in the team, but also with the clients and future clients.
Yeah. That's so true. Yeah. I've seen it where I call it ninja initiatives, that when you are trying to kind of push something forward, you've got other people in there working in the background to kind of slow it down or stop it from happening. So
the reluctance to change, right? Change management.
Right. That's change management. Yep. So when, so you've explained a lot about what you've kind of worked with them on. What are some of the outcomes that your clients have come back, year 1, year 2 on out, that they've kind of found, what sticks, what has to be remediated?
So the first thing I do is, as we look at kind of what we're doing, is I ask them, what are their SMART goals, right? Right. People say it all the time. They put it in there. We want to have SMART goals, but part of the SMART goal is having the communication with your employees on how you're going to hold the employee accountable. And a lot of the discussion for me is, if we get the right job description, we get the right tasks identified, we get the right people to do those tasks, and we lay out expectations, communication works, believe it or not. Common sense and communication, which we try, all the new schools want to throw that out and give you something new. But people like to know what you're expecting of them. They like to know the roadmap. They like to know how they're part of the team. And part of the challenge that I like to go back to is saying, okay, after 60 or 90 days or a year, maybe a year's too long, I like to come back 60 to or 180 days. Because if you're trying to grow a company and you set metrics, did we set the wrong metric? You won't know if you wait a year. You've lost a lot of opportunity costs there.
Yeah.
So it's how often do you want, but you don't want to have so many reports and so many checks and so many balances that your managers can't lead. But you need to have ones that you can truly check on the health of the company and check on the health of your processes to see if you've got a yellow light, right?
Yeah.
Or a red light. And then you might find that after a 90-day run on a new process or a new task that we're not meeting the mark. So you need to sit down and do the 5 W's. And you need to have that communication with your employees so the 5 W's matter and they're not scared to tell you, hey, boss, you just gave us a goal that we just can't get there. And here's why. And that allows them to have that communication back and have the relationship with you. And that's why I say it's better to catch that at 90 or 180 days instead of a year, because now you've lost the time, money, and revenue by not checking on what you wanted soon enough. And then you also too, maybe if you're not seeing any movement or any, you might need to let it run another 90 days, and not just kill it. Some things might take a little more than one cycle. I say one of the things I love to preach is get out of the 90-day business model. Yeah. Because especially a lot of my traded companies or companies that have investors, it's all about what they do in 90 days.
Yeah.
And their bonuses. Well, that's why some of our geopolitical adversaries are outmaneuvering us, because they're playing the long game.
Yeah.
They're running the marathon. We're running the sprint. So we don't have the health to really make it.
That's so true. That's so true. I had a former guest on, and we were talking about, because I do a lot of future related stuff. And I was telling him, I said, I lay out a 100-year plan and then stay very flexible in that, because a lot of things change, right? Compared to the 3 to 5, I'm looking at what can kill me at 10 and then kind of backing into the 3 to 5 as to what I need to be prepared. What team do I need to bring in at what time? So that's so true. And you're absolutely right. Our adversaries, they are preparing just like that. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, my research for my doctorate program was actually, I saw how that Japan used that same model for the 100-year plan. I didn't invent it. They did.
No, and the Chinese are using it today, and a lot of the other companies that are rebuilding using our money are using the long game plan, right?
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
They've got to make a plan that if our little side funding or our economy stalls, that they can have a plan to keep moving without us.
That's right. That's right. So I've really enjoyed our conversation. I would ask one more question that kind of back up a little bit on this, because you brought it up, and I want to just for the listeners who haven't really heard this before, but you said the 5 W's. Now I think I know what you meant, but would you mind explaining that just a little bit so that the listeners would know?
Yeah, in engineering, some people say 4, some people say 5. You ask the question why, right? Why do you think that happened? Okay, well, why did that happen? And when you get to that 3rd, 4th, or 5th why, you really get to root cause issues.
Okay.
So that's why I say the 5 W's. It's not the who, what, when, where, why. But I call it the 5 whys.
Right.
An analogy that, and one of my courses that I took, I don't know if it was a philosophy course or an engineering course, it was the national parks were having to replace concrete on some of the statues more often than others in the same park. And so they asked they went to the 5 whys. Okay, why are we having to redo concrete? Well, the statue is eroding faster. Well, why is it eroding faster? Well, we have to clean it more often. Well, why do you have to clean it more often? Well, it has more bird feces on it than the other ones do.
Okay.
Well, why does it have more bird feces than the one, 100 yards away? Well, they got to the fifth or the sixth why, and it was because the lights at night on that end of the park came on first. So all the bugs at dusk populated on around those statues. So all the birds at sunset were coming to those statues to eat, and then they perched and pooped on those statues.
Look at there. Thank you
So,
for sharing that exercise.
so I always ask my guy, okay, it goes back to what I said. If we set a goal and we're not meeting it, let's have good communication, good relationship management with our team and our vendors. It might be our vendors. Okay, but what did you change in your process, or what did you change in your chemical? Why? Was it cost? Was it regulation? Was it, let's ask the whys and let's work through. And we might, after 4 or 5 whys, say, okay, we just had the wrong assumption.
Wow.
And now
good.
we have to go back and look at our assumptions again. But again, the key is, what's the root cause? Did we do it right? And do we have the relationship with our team so they don't say, oh man, we missed our numbers. And so when they walk in the room, they're coming in with their head down instead of with their data.
Yeah, that's so important. How would any of my listeners be able to reach out and learn more about you and be able to contact you?
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for asking that, Tom. So the website's www.brianlkent.com. So that's my personal site. I have several companies that I advise for and that I own, but brianlkent.com is the one that comes right to me. Matter of fact, through that's how we handle our consulting. And then now we're actually almost ready to release a book on this, on kind of this same strategy.
Okay.
And then behind that, we'll start putting out training modules. Website's been up now for just about 2 months. We're working the bugs out of that. The book should be released in September. Don't have a name yet, but in about 2 or 3 weeks, we'll have a name for the book. But it is really meant to tackle owner, CEO type, manager type problems and tasks, and talk through strategy, business development. And we're going to even touch a little bit on kind of some of the different funding ideas with the new marketplace. So it's not going to be business 101. It's going to be really a story of a young lady starting her business and walking through some of the challenges she's having as she's trying to scale. And setting those SMART goals so that you can hold your salespeople, your logistics people, and your back office accountable, so that if you've got the wrong person in the wrong seat, we can help them find another job, or we can get the training they need to be the asset we need them to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always believe in being a conscientious employer. And sometimes it just doesn't work out and you can find another position for them. Sometimes they have to find, go be successful elsewhere, but you can help that pathway for them. So that
I have found even if sometimes you have to have layoffs because through mergers or things happen. I have found I would rather have apostles than enemies in other companies.
That's so true.
And I found that if you have to lay somebody off, if you can keep them with a transition, great. And you can help them, or either, if you have to give a 2-week severance because you got to just kind of move them along, anything that your HR department or the program managers can do to refer them out, especially if they're a good employee. Now they're in the next company and they talk about how good the company took care of them as we had to let them go for a good reason, or for a normal reason. And it comes back. I mean, I've had business referred to me from people that have had to let go.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. How you treat them, that's, from beginning to end, that's what they're going to remember.
Absolutely. So it's about the relationship. I say it all the time, relationship management and teamwork.
Absolutely. So we've kind of reached the end of the of our time together. So I wanted to kind of give you a chance to kind of, there's any closing remarks that you might have for the listeners, I'd like to give you that opportunity.
Well, I would say as a closing remark, if you're a business owner or you're in a leadership role, if you work with your employees, own your employees, and help your employees, they'll help you with the business. Again, that comes through setting good goals, reviewing the job description, make sure you have the right person, and then making sure you hold them accountable. People don't mind being held accountable. The ones that do mind being held accountable, you might not need them, and you might need to help them move on to help your competitor.
Well, Brian, I really appreciate that, and you have a great day.
All righty.
Thank you,
Tom.
us.
Thanks for listening to Morning Joe with Tom. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. See you next time for more real-life stories and inspiration on Morning Joe with Tom.